It's 5 minutes with me.
I grew up in a big church with a big youth ministry. The smallest church I worked in had a worship of about 600 on Sundays, and the other churches I worked in ranged from 2,500 to 8,000. And much of this was because I was passionate about ministry with junior hires, and only larger churches tend to have the budget for a specialist in that area. But I think I subconsciously developed a line of thinking that bigger churches were better than small churches, that they had more value. This thinking of mine was particularly true when it came to youth ministry. I couldn't conceive how a small church without adequate resources and paid staff could really deliver when it came to the complexities of programming a great youth ministry. What an idiot, right? I remember a number of years ago now feeling a bit disoriented when hearing an influential youth ministry expert tell me about his own teenage experience of youth ministry. This guy grew up in a tiny church of 30 people. He said, "We didn't have a youth ministry. My experience of youth ministry was Bob, the guy who genuinely and authentically asked me how I was every week." What I've noticed is that some of the best youth ministry takes place in small churches. Of course, that requires us to unpack what I mean by best. Certainly, without all the bells and whistles, many youth workers, particularly those who have access to the bells and whistles, would assume that nothing good can come out of Nazareth because it's small and backwater. Sure, they're trying, but there's no way they can pull off the creativity and complexity and competency that we embody. Some church is going to pick up those 3 C words as their tagline. Just watch. Here's my observational insight. Small churches are often blessed into wonderful youth ministry by their very lack of resources. In fact, I'm more and more convinced that one of the worst things that can happen to a youth ministry is to become well-resourced. If small churches had resources, they might have gone down the same paths of distraction and bluster that have plagued so many of us. I noticed something amazing at a particular youth event I was speaking at a few years back. This event was primarily populated with small youth groups, 5 to 15 teenagers per group. And there was one larger group, maybe 30 teenagers, but most were these little groups. And I noticed, what I noticed seemed like it should have been more previously obvious to me. There was a significantly higher percentage of, let's call them misfits, other kinds of kids at this event. Overweight teenagers, teenagers with limps, one in a wheelchair, even otherwise normalish teenagers with horrible haircuts that revealed a high level of social awkwardness. There were less beautiful people, less of the kinds of teenagers who have multiple social options. In the moment I first noticed this, as the teenagers were filing in for a session where I would speak to them, I was surprised by my own emotion, which caught me off guard. My throat constricted, I thought I might cry, and because it was absolutely and stunningly gorgeous, it hit me like a brick. These misfits have clearly been told, you belong, you matter, we want you here. If you're in a smaller church, thank God for your lack of resources. Thank God that you may have had your hand forced to not pursue showiness and pizzazz. Count it as a blessing that your only option may have been to compromise on what you wish you could do and settle for spending time with teenagers without impressing them. If you're a mid-sized or larger church, watch out for those resources. They bite, and their venom can lull you into the lie that your resources are what change lives. Watch out for how resources seduce you and threaten to control you. Pay attention to your level of excitement over budget approvals. This could be your canary in a coal mine warning you that it's time to redirect your energies. There's unquestionably some amazing youth ministry happening in larger church youth ministries, but only if they've ruthlessly embraced the value of small. Smaller churches don't have to figure this out as they're embracing small by default. In short, smaller churches have a shorter pathway to amazing youth ministry.
The Youth Cartel Podcast Network.